Welcome to another episode of Pod. You know, usually when someone begs, like repeating the exact same word 3 times in a row, it's this moment of raw, unfiltered human emotion.
Right. It's sweat, tears, total heartbreak.
Exactly. It's the sound of someone who has completely run out of options.
Mm.
But today we're asking a kind of weird question. How does the internet attempt to neatly file away that kind of messy, chaotic emotion?
Which is an almost impossible task.
It really is. So today we're doing a deep dive into the architecture of information. Specifically, we're looking at how a machine handles human passion and how, the attempt to organize culture often reveals just as much about us as the culture itself.
It's a fascinating tension, honestly. We're taking something entirely fluid like musical expression, yearning, desperation, and we are forcing it into literally the most rigid structure imaginable.
A database.
A database, exactly.
And our source material today to explore that tension, it's not some dense historical biography.
Wow.
It's not a piece of highbrow musicology. It is, quite literally, just a Wikipedia disambiguation page for the phrase, please, please, please.
Which sounds almost deceptively simple, right?
Yeah, kind of boring at first glance.
Right. But this incredibly short list, this basic menu of hyperlinks, it actually functions as a highly precise map of musical history. Because it forces to look at artists who operate in completely different musical universes.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, we're talking people like James Brown, Fiona Apple, and Sabrina Carpenter, and it places them all side by side in this sterile digital waiting room.
Yeah, and you listening right now, you might already have one of those songs playing in your head. But the story for this deep dive isn't actually about the songs themselves.
No, it's not about the melodies.
Or the chart histories, yeah. The story is how these completely different artists, spanning all the way from 1958 to today, all somehow ended up sharing this exact same piece of digital real estate.
It's wild when you step back and look at it.
It is. But before we get into the artists themselves, let's just establish what a disambiguation page actually is, mechanically speaking. Because it isn't a destination.
No, definitely not.
I was thinking about this, and it's kind of like trying to pour a bucket of water into a filing cabinet.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Right. The emotion of these songs is the water. It's fluid, it's hard to contain. But the database, the filing cabinet, it only understands alphabetical, dry manila folders.
That is a highly accurate way to look at it. A disambiguation page is, at its core, an administrative tool.
Right.
It exists purely to resolve ambiguity in a system that fundamentally cannot tolerate ambiguity. You as a user typed in a feeling, this specific sequence of 3 words, and the machine is essentially pausing the transaction.
It's stopping you.
Yeah, it stops you to say, hey, which specific version of this feeling did you intend to find?
And the page even features this almost apologetic sort of robotic line sitting right there in the text. It says, if an internal link incorrectly led you here, you may wish to change the link to point directly to the intended article.
Which is such a machine thing to say.
Completely. They aren't trying to give you the history of the intersection. They just want to get you out of the intersection and on your way, like a traffic cop.
Precisely. It's a digital traffic mechanism. And the reason this traffic mechanism exists at all, it's actually hinted at right at the very top of the page.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about this.
It's a structural detail that is incredibly easy to miss. If you look right beneath the main title, it says in this tiny text in parentheses, redirected from please, please, please song.
Let's pause on that, because that tiny parenthetical note, it seems to imply a whole lot about the history of the page itself.
It implies a massive structural history, yes. It strongly suggests that the architecture of this database originally had a one-to-one relationship in mind.
Meaning what, exactly?
Yeah. Meaning someone, at some point in the early days of this encyclopedia, created a page for please, please, please song, assuming it was the definitive version. Thought, this is the song, singular.
Oh, wow.
Okay. But culture doesn't work like that, right? Culture repeats itself. Artists borrow, they reuse, they tap into the exact same linguistic wells. And eventually, the database just broke under the weight of multiple artists using that exact same title.
Which necessitated this traffic cop page we're looking at today.
Exactly.
But wait, I have to challenge that interpretation just a little bit.
Sure.
Doesn't that just mean someone was lazy in the early days of Wikipedia? Like, why does it have to be some profound statement on database architecture? Couldn't it just be a coding shortcut from, say, 2005, where an editor just didn't want to take the time to type out a full disambiguation menu?
That's a fair question.
It's,
And, laziness, or let's call it efficiency, definitely plays a huge role in how the internet gets built. But even if it was just a quick shortcut, it still reflects a foundational assumption of web architecture at that time, which was that data could be neatly siloed.
okay, I see.
In those early days, the ontology of the way information was categorized was largely built on unique, definitive entries. The system was designed to mirror a physical encyclopedia volume.
Oh, like a book.
Yeah, if you open a physical book to Apple, you expect to find a picture of the fruit. You don't expect a list of tech companies, record labels, and fruits all asking you to clarify what you meant.
Right, right.
So that redirect from song is kind of like a digital scar. It's proof that the original container they built for this piece of culture was simply too small. And the system had to dynamically generate a new holding area when other artists inevitably released music with the identical title.
Okay, I see the logic there. The system assumed a single victor, and then culture came along and proved it wrong.
Absolutely.
And to understand exactly how culture proved the system wrong, we have to look at the chronological origins of this list. We have to go back to the earliest entry on the page.
Which drops us squarely in 1958.
Yes, 1958 with James Brown.
The godfather of soul.
Yeah.
1958 really is the anchor point for this entire digital structure.
But James Brown doesn't just have one entry here. He has two completely separate entries stacked right next to each other.
Yeah, this part is fascinating.
And the distinction between them comes down to a microscopic grammatical detail. The text lists one entry for his 1958 album titled Please, 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 with absolutely no commas, just the three words strung together.
Right.
But then the very next bullet point is for his song, which is titled Please, 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 with commas separating every single word.
This is exactly where we see the absolute friction between artistic naming conventions and database logic. Because what we are actually talking about here is string identification.
Break that down for us, because clearly James Brown in 1958 wasn't sitting in a recording studio thinking, the album concept is a continuous thought, so we'll omit punctuation, but the single requires a deliberate grammatical pause.
Right. No.
This has to be a modern data requirement, right?
Exactly. A database, at its core level, requires unique identifiers to function. It reads data as strings of characters. That includes letters, numbers, spaces, and punctuation.
Okay.
If the album and the song are entered into the system using the exact same string of characters, so no commas for either quote, the database gets confused. From the machine's perspective, they occupy the exact same coordinate in space.
It wouldn't know which one you meant.
Right. If a user searches for that string, the system doesn't know whether to serve up the metadata for the 12-inch vinyl record or the 3-minute audio track.
So the encyclopedia editors, these people who are just trying to organize this rigid data, they're forced to use commas as a visual and programmatic wedge.
Yes. Human intervention is required to create this tiny artificial barrier that the machine can recognize. By adding commas to the song title, the editors change the ASCII character sequence entirely.
Wow.
Please, space, please is fundamentally a different piece of data to the machine than please, comma, space, please.
That is such a stark example of cataloging the human soul. I mean, you have the raw passion of James Brown, an artist who is literally famous for dropping to his knees and screaming into a microphone in 1958.
The hardest working man in show business.
Exactly. And his legacy, at least in this specific digital space, is reduced to a sterile administrative debate over whether or not a comma belongs after the first word. It's like the emotion is entirely stripped away by the architecture, leaving only the punctuation.
Is the ultimate distillation of metadata. Metadata doesn't care how the song makes you feel. It only cares how the song is filed.
Right.
And this rigid cataloging system doesn't just stop with the soul era.
Yeah.
As you scroll down, the disambiguation page moves us straight into the modern era, showing how this exact same title sound commas was adopted by entirely different genres.
Right. Which brings us to the next two major players sharing this page, Fiona Apple and Sabrina Carpenter. And this is where the human element of the database really starts to show its flaws, I think. Because when we look at how these two modern artists are listed, the formatting is completely inconsistent.
It is highly uneven.
Right. Because Fiona Apple's entry specifically lists her song as being from the album Extraordinary Machine. It gives you the full context right there on the disambiguation page, which is helpful.
Very helpful.
But then you look at Sabrina Carpenter's entry directly below it, and it completely lacks any album context whatsoever. It just says Sabrina Carpenter song.
Yeah, bare minimum.
Why would a system that is supposedly so rigid about commas and redirects allow such glaring inconsistencies in how modern artists are presented?
Because the system isn't actually an autonomous, flawless machine. It's a patchwork of human editors. This is the reality of crowdsourced knowledge. You have thousands of anonymous volunteers who are constantly building and rebuilding these pages, and they all operate with slightly different philosophies on what constitutes, necessary context.
So one editor felt it was absolutely vital to point out that Fiona Apple's track belongs to the extraordinary machine era, maybe to distinguish it from her other work.
Probably, yeah.
While a completely different editor just dropped Sabrina Carpenter's name onto the list, hit save, and called it a day.
Precisely. It perfectly highlights the subjective nature of data entry. To one person, the album name is crucial metadata that aids in the disambiguation process. To another person, just knowing the artist who sings it is more than enough to get the lost traveler to their destination.
So it's totally random.
Basically, the database is only as consistent as the last person who logged in to edit it.
That inconsistency between the Apple entry and the Carpenter entry, it really shows that the system knows it isn't perfect.
Right.
And because the system knows it's imperfect, and more importantly, it knows that human searchers are imperfect, it has to build a safety net at the very bottom of the page.
Ah, yes. The See Also section.
The See Also section. Because down there at the bottom, past James Brown and Fiona Apple, we are suddenly introduced to the British pop rock band McFly.
Yeah.
And the inclusion of McFly is fascinating because of the quantifiable drop-off in desperation here. McFly's song is simply titled Please, Please, Only Two Pleases.
Separated by a single comma.
Exactly, separated by a single comma. Logically, though, why are they even taking up space in this specific digital room? The page we are analyzing is explicitly titled Please, 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 with 3 words.
Right, mathematically it doesn't fit.
A 2-word song shouldn't qualify for this list.
And this brings us to how search architecture anticipates human failure. The See Also section acts as a catchment area for near misses in search queries.
A catchment area.
Yeah. The database is assuming that if a user is searching for a song with 3 pleases, there is a statistically significant chance they have misremembered the title.
Oh, that makes sense.
Right. The system thinks maybe they're actually looking for the song with only 2 pleases. So it expands the scope of the page to include artists who were close, but not quite an exact match for the primary metadata.
It's accommodating human memory, which is notoriously faulty. I mean, if you hear a song on the radio and try to search for it later, you might not remember if they begged twice or 3 times.
Exactly. You just remember the begging. And it creates this bizarre hierarchy of begging, if you think about it. If you notice, right below McFly in that same See Also section, there's a link to Please, disambiguation.
Oh, I saw that. So if you only wanted one single please, you have to take another train entirely to a completely different digital station.
Exactly. One word gets its own massive sprawling page. 2 words get relegated to the safety net section of the 3-word page. And 3 words are the primary real estate we're looking at today. It is this perfectly rigid, deeply literal system trying to categorize completely fluid artistic choices.
That literalness is what makes this source so compelling to analyze. But I think it also brings up a really crucial limitation of our deep dive today.
Which is?
We have to acknowledge what we don't have. We are looking at a menu, not the meal.
Oh, absolutely.
We don't have the lyrics to these songs, we don't have the soaring melodies, we don't have the chart histories, and we don't have the critical reception that explains why these songs mattered in 1958 or in 2024. We only have the metadata.
We are looking at the skeleton of culture.
We are. But even that skeleton is alive in a strange digital way. If you scroll past the artists and look at the fine print at the very bottom of the page, there are these amazing metadata facts that prove this isn't just a static document.
Right, the footer.
Yeah. For instance, the source notes that this specific page was last edited on June 7, 2026 at 23.18 UTC.
Just think about the implications of that timestamp for a second.
It's wild.
It is absolute proof of a living, breathing document. Some anonymous editor somewhere in the world logged on close to midnight on a summer night in 2026 just to meticulously update this tiny, highly specific corner of the internet.
They were actively adjusting the traffic flow for a 3-word emotional plea,
Yes.
which raises the question, why are they allowed to do that?
Mhm.
Who gave them the authority to reroute James Brown and Sabrina Carpenter? And that brings us to the legal framework that keeps all of this information free and adaptable, because the footer of the page cites the Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike 4.0 license.
That license is the invisible glue holding this entire project together.
I want to dig into that because it's so easy to just glaze over legal text at the bottom of a web page. What does Attribution Share Alike 4.0 actually mean for digital history?
Well, it means that this categorization, this specific arrangement of James Brown's commas, Fiona Apple's album context, and McFly's safety net, it belongs to everyone. Yes. The attribution part means you can take this exact list, publish it yourself, or use it in a project, as long as you give credit to the original creators, which in this case is the collective of Wikipedia editors.
Okay. And the share alike part, what does that do?
Share alike is the truly revolutionary mechanism here. It dictates that if you remix, transform, or build upon this material, you must distribute your new contributions under the exact same license as the original.
Oh, so it creates a loop.
Exactly. It creates a viral loop of open information. It ensures that the metadata itself, the way we organize human emotion, remains a cultural artifact that cannot be locked away behind a corporate paywall or copyrighted by a single entity.
Wow.
It legally mandates that the organization of knowledge remains in the commons forever.
That actually reframes the entire document for me. It isn't just a sterile database, it's a collectively owned map of human expression. The law itself guarantees that this weird patchwork categorization will continue to exist and adapt as long as people keep making music.
And that is the beauty of this kind of incomplete evidence. A disambiguation page doesn't care about the why.
Right.
We shouldn't try to force a simple answer about why all these artists, decades apart, chose this exact title. Maybe Fiona Apple was making a direct homage to James Brown. Maybe Sabrina Carpenter was making an homage to Fiona Apple.
Or maybe it was all just a total coincidence.
Exactly. Or maybe there are just only so many ways to express that specific kind of desperate yearning in the English language.
And the database doesn't attempt to answer those questions.
No, it doesn't. It only cares about the where. Where do we put this data? Where do we send the user? It's just a framework. It is completely up to the listener to imagine the music that fleshes it out. It provides the coordinates, but you have to actually listen to the tracks to experience the territory.
It literally takes you from a sweaty, high-energy soul stage in the late 50s, straight into modern indie pop, over to contemporary top 40, and even throws in some mid-2000s British pop rock for good measure.
All through the lens of a single repeated word.
Yeah.
If we pull back and look at the broader implications of this source, there's a profound tension here that links right back to the opening of our discussion. You have James Brown, Fiona Apple, Sabrina Carpenter, and McFly.
Right.
These are artists who likely never shared a studio. They appeal to vastly different demographics, but they are forever locked together in this specific digital room.
Because they tapped into the same frequency.
Exactly. They tapped into an emotional wavelength so universal, so common to the human experience, that it fundamentally shattered the database's original architecture.
It broke the container.
They forced the internet to build a special, custom-designed room just to keep their shared desperation organized. The human emotion broke the machine, and the machine had to adapt by creating a disambiguation page.
You know, the next time you find yourself falling down an internet rabbit hole, I want you to keep that in mind. Think about how your own searches, your own curiosities, are being quietly shaped by these invisible maps and digital traffic cops.
It happens every day.
It does. Every single time you click a link and accidentally land on a disambiguation page, you aren't just looking at an error screen or a list of links. You are standing at a literal crossroads of human culture. You are looking at a monument to all the different ways we've tried to express the exact same feeling across generations, all neatly filed away under a Creative Commons license, just waiting for the next artist to come along and add their name to the list. Thanks for listening to PPR Pod. Keep tuning in for more stories worth knowing.